First of all, the turtle, Mitch McConnell, who decided he's going to retire from the Senate and from leadership position. I don't know where to begin this. There was a line I learned in Shakespeare when I was in high school, and it was from Mark Antony's funeral oration for Julius Caesar. And the line goes something like this, if I remember it. The evil men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones. Well, that certainly kind of applies to Mitch McConnell. My main question, of course, would be, come on, Malloy, what good did this bastard ever do? But the evil that he did, absolutely right, Willie the Sheikh, the evil men does live after them, especially in the case of Mitch McConnell, because he has made it possible single-handedly this entire morass of insanity, at the center of which is Donald Trump. Mitch McConnell had a chance on the first impeachment trial to tell his minions in the Senate, get rid of this fucker because he is bad news. He had a chance on the second impeachment trial after he laid the blame for what happened on January 6th squarely on Trump. He had a second chance. And both times, this miserable son of a bitch, Mitch McConnell, refused. In addition to that, he has stacked the federal judiciary in this country to the extent that if there is a United States 30 years from now, people will still be dealing. This long after the turtle is long dead and his bones have turned into mush somewhere. The people in this country, if there is a country, will still be dealing with what Mitch McConnell did to the federal judiciary. But I have in front of me something put together by the Daily Kos staff. The 17 worst things Mitch McConnell did to destroy democracy. Now, I believe when I find something worth repeating, I like to repeat it as much as I can verbatim. This happens to be one of those items. And Daily Kos references the fact that McConnell announced yesterday, of course, that he'll be stepping down as the Republican leader in the Senate in November. And let me pause for a minute. There's a reason for that, because McConnell knows that if Trump wins, and I think McConnell figures that there's a good chance that that's going to happen, not by getting the majority of the votes, or the majority of the votes in the Electoral College, but by the terror that the Trump Nazis are going to deliver to this country. And if that's the case, then Mitch McConnell, you think they were saying, hang Mike Pence, where do they get Mitch McConnell? Even though Mitch McConnell did 1 billion times more damage to the idea of democracy than poor old Mike Pence ever did. Anyway, the fact that he's stepping down in November, well, for the sake of democracy, that this bastard has spent decades trying to destroy, that moment in November, as Daily Kos puts it, can't come soon enough. Anyway, a few of his career, I want to say highlights, but let's call it lowlights. 1, he stole a Supreme Court seat from President Barack Obama. When Justice Antonin Scalia died in February 2016, McConnell insisted that the seat would remain empty because, well, it was an election year, and according to a rule he created, the seat could therefore not be filled. He said, quote, the American people should have a voice in the selection of the next Supreme Court justice. Therefore, the vacancies do not be filled until we have a new president. And he refused to even give Obama's nominee, the current Attorney General, Merrick Garland, a hearing, much less a vote. But 3 years later, asked what he would do if the same situation rose in 2020 under Donald Trump, he said, oh, well, we'd fill it. And that's exactly what he did. Number 2, he stole the Supreme Court seat from future President Joe Biden. And he did this after changing his no new Supreme Court justice in the last year of a president's term rule to install this ultra-conservative Christian freak, Amy Christian Barrett, on the court 8 days before the 2020 election. And the night Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died in the fall of 2020, according to Mitch McConnell's former chief of staff, McConnell told Donald Trump he would absolutely fill the vacancy just weeks out from the election. And Trump told him, you got to nominate Amy Coney Barrett. Number 3, he packed the federal judiciary for Trump with white men, many of them unqualified. While the Supreme Court seats may be the most visible part of Mitch McConnell's stacking of the judiciary, his goal went even further. As PBS Frontline noted, that meant he wanted his legacy to be one of, quote, filling the federal judiciary with conservative judges, end quote. May I digress a moment from Daily Kos? These are not conservative judges. These are fascist judges. Number 4, he vowed to obstruct Obama. He told the National Journal, which is a fascist organization, in 2010, quote, the single most important thing we want to achieve is for President Obama to be a one-term president. Remember when he said that? Too bad, you little shit. Didn't work, did it? Number 5, he vowed to obstruct Biden. In 2021, he said, 100% of our focus is on stopping this new administration. Not working for the American people. I digress from the Daily Kos piece again, these 17 things. But, Mitch McConnell did not set out with Democratic presidents to further the progress for the American people. That's not what the turtle was about. Mitch McConnell he was such an arrogant fucker. He was just like Trump, just a narcissistic creep. And he's paying for it now when he stands there and fades out to the point where he's staring into middle space and he doesn't know what planet he's on. Well, Mitch, I'll tell you what, dude, that could be considered karma. I mean, if you believe that shit, but yeah, maybe so. But instead of working with the Biden administration or the Obama administration, this obstructionist little white cracker-headed fool from Kentucky decided to be a miserable fly in the ointment, dog in the manger, whatever you want to call it. What a nasty prick. Number 6, he made the debt ceiling a permanent hostage starting in 2011. McConnell may not have invented the government shutdown, but he made sure that shutdown threats were a regular part of American politics, while he also shut down efforts to fix the problem. He said this before a vote on the debt ceiling in 2011. He said this, quote, I think some of our members may have thought the default issue was a hostage you might take a chance at shooting. Well, most of us didn't think that. What we did learn is this. It's a hostage that's worth ransoming. End quote. A hostage that's worth ransoming. He's talking about the economic viability of the United States. And to this prick, it was a hostage worth ransoming. Number 7, he turned the filibuster into a weapon. He used the filibuster more than ever in history during the Obama administration to try to deny Obama any legislative victories, just as he said he would. Oh, make him one-term president. And he kept using it long after Obama left office, including to block a 9/11 style January 6th committee. So not only is this lying prick, diverting again from Daily Kos, not only is this unconscionable prick willing to fuck up the judiciary, he didn't want a January 6th investigation of what happened because he knew. McConnell reportedly, back to Daily Kos, McConnell reportedly worked the phones to be sure The commission bill died, asking some Republican senators to join the filibuster as a, quote, personal favor to him, despite the appeal from the mother of a murdered Capitol Police officer, Brian Sicknick, to support the commission. Jesus. Number 8, he voted to acquit Trump after the January 6th insurrection. And just like when he blocked the nomination of Garland to the Supreme Court, he blamed it on the timing. The Washington Post described it this way. We witnessed an historic confession of hypocrisy and deceit on Saturday when Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell went to the floor after voting to acquit Donald Trump in the Senate impeachment trial. End quote. And that came after McConnell had given a speech calling Trump's actions, quote, a disgraceful dereliction of duty. And McConnell added that Trump was practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. End quote. But according to the Washington Post, you see, McConnell had an excuse. Timing. He claimed it was too late to convict Trump. And as Daily Kos points out, for McConnell, it's always too late to do something. Unless it isn't. Number 9, he built a career in a big campaign nest egg fighting against gun safety regulations. That includes pulling down $1.3 million in donations from the corrupt, now it's been proven, the corrupt NRA, while blocking efforts to address mass shootings. No single individual may be completely responsible for America's failure to address gun violence, but this turtle-looking son of a bitch comes very close. Number 10, he destroyed campaign finance reform and filibustered any effort to get money out of politics. He may have called money in politics a cancer at the start of his career back in the Reagan days, but once he was in the Senate, he devoted himself to protecting that so-called cancer. Oh, and spreading it. Number 11, he blocked votes to save the Voting Rights Act, and that included refusing to hold hearings on an amendment named in honor of the great congressman and civil rights icon from here in Georgia, John Lewis. McConnell claimed, he was a supporter of the Voting Rights Act at the beginning of his career, but as Senate leader, he weakened the act every single chance he took, or he had. And this, along with his other moves to make it more difficult to vote, earned McConnell the nickname, quote, the gravedigger of American democracy, end quote. Son of a bitch. Number 12, he tried to kill Obamacare. How many times? And failed. After a repeated attempt failed by a vote of 51 to 49, this bastard said, quote, this is clearly a disappointing moment. I regret that our efforts simply were not enough this time, end quote. Number 13, he blew off coal miners with black lung disease from his own state. That included giving a group of miners who drove from Kentucky to meet with him just 2 minutes of his time. But McConnell always found time to help mine owners prop up this filthy industry. He failed to support legislation that would reclaim mine land for economic development. He shied away from a bipartisan coalition in his state that is nurturing tech, medical, and even solar jobs. He led the Republican effort to cut taxes on the coal companies, taxes that would have gone to help struggling miners. And he has not tried to shore up a badly underfunded miners' pension fund. The coal miner's friend, huh? Son of a bitch. Number 14, he is now working with the Trump campaign to endorse Trump for another term. Sources involved in the negotiations give a weak explanation. One source told The Hill, quote, we've reached the part of the primary where the party is coming together. The absolute worst thing that can happen to this country is electing Joe Biden for 4 more years, and you can expect to coalesce around that point over the next 9 months, end quote. For protecting our institutions from the guy who tried to torch them. Number 15, he named himself the Grim Reaper. He vowed to kill, literally kill, any progressive legislation to address climate change and expand Medicare. In 2019, he said this, quote, "Are we going to turn this into a socialist country? Don't assume it cannot happen. If I'm still the majority leader of the Senate, think of me as the Grim Reaper. None of that stuff is going to pass. None of it." And number 16, he took his infamous picture in front of the Confederate flag. He said the photo of him beaming in front of this racist piece of rag shit was taken when he was a freshman senator at a meeting of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and no, he's not sorry. He said, quote, "I don't regret going to speak to a group which at the time was not being considered, a pariah in our society. I, over the years, have probably seen to plenty of groups and shaken hands with a whole lot of people who didn't agree with me." End quote. Fucking pale-faced Confederate bastard. Number 17, he tried to silence Senator Elizabeth Warren. Of course, it didn't work. During a floor speech against the confirmation of Jeff Sessions as Trump's Attorney General in 2017, Senator Warren read, or tried to read, a damning letter from Coretta Scott King, written in 1986, which blasted Jeff Sessions for, quote, "the awesome power of his office to chill the free expression of the vote by black citizens while serving as United States Attorney in Alabama." Well, that's what Elizabeth Warren tried to read into the record, and of course McConnell didn't like that, and he insisted that Miss Warren had violated a rule against demeaning a fellow senator, and he cut her off. McConnell said at the time, "She was warned, she was given an explanation, nevertheless she persisted," end quote. Well, the joke turns out, if it's a joke regarding that incident, is on McConnell, because his shitty little comments of Elizabeth Warren became a meme and a hashtag and a tattoo and a fundraiser and a rallying cry. So let me, thank you, Daily Kos, for putting that together. Let me give a tip of my middle finger as a farewell to Mitch McConnell, who's not going anywhere. That's the part that is just, it kind of irritates the shit out of me. He makes a big deal yesterday, and I watched the whole speech that he gave on the floor of the Senate. What a miserable little bastard he is, I swear to God. But he's not going anywhere. He's giving up his Senate leadership position because he knows that it would be taken away from him eventually. He'll have his ass kicked back to be a backbencher or something. Well, that would never happen. But he's not going to be the Senate leader again. In the first place, the Democrats are going to expand their control over the U.S. Senate. And in the second place, if the time ever were to come when the Republicans got control of the Senate, they would step over Mitch McConnell like a dead animal on a railroad track. They don't give a fuck about McConnell. As a matter of fact, they don't like him. The MAGA Hitler-esque organization run by the Antichrist. They want Mitch McConnell out of the way because he served his purpose. See, that's the thing about Nazis. Look what Hitler did with the so-called brown shirts, the SA, the precursor to the SS. It was called the Night of the Long Knives. You remember reading about this, right? The Night of the Long Knives. It was after Hitler, I think it was after he got the chancellorship of Germany. And a night came when Hitler ordered what became the SS to go murder hundreds of these SA stormtroopers that had assisted Trump in his fascist takeover of Germany. So the same thing applies here. McConnell is probably the person whose efforts are the most responsible for the situation we face right now with this orange son of a bitch, Donald Trump. But the maggots and Donald Trump, they don't want him around anymore. I mean, he's a living, breathing witness. The time may come, you see, when Mitch McConnell, although this would never happen, but Trump and his minions are a bunch of paranoid, scared little fucking rabbits. They're afraid that the time may come when when McConnell might turn on them and reveal the shit that only McConnell knows about Donald Trump and the inner workings of the Christian Fascist Party. Well, the Christian fascists don't want that to happen, so what's the best way to do that? To McConnell, like any mafia organization, yo, hey Mitch, it might be time for you to retire to Florida, you know what I'm saying? I got a condo down there on the beach. I think you might like it down there, Mitch. And, if you don't like it down there, well, I'm afraid we'll have to fucking kill you. So it's your choice, dude. Oh, God. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I apologize for the shitty mafia imitation. I should know how to speak mafia. I mean, my mother's side of the family were all Italian, not Sicilian. You can't really be a made man unless you can trace it back to Sicily, to the Cosa Nostra. Oh, come on. You know all this shit from going to movies. So do I. So one of the worst people ever to serve in office, Mitch McConnell, and headline at Common Dreams said he will be remembered for all the wrong things. The Grim Reaper, indeed. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.